Welcome back. Today, I'll tell you about a Russian sci-fi movie from 2020 called Invasion. Be careful, there are spoilers ahead. 3 years ago, aliens secretly came to Earth. Since then, countries like the USA, Russia, and China have been working together to protect the planet. A new satellite has been launched to watch space carefully, making sure no alien ships can sneak in again. As the satellite opens, it detects a strange alien ship with moving, tentacle-like parts. Suddenly, a small shuttle leaves the ship, heads toward Earth, and enters the atmosphere. Somewhere in the ocean, fishermen are working on a boat. One fisherman notices something falling from the sky and splashing into the water. It's the alien shuttle, but he keeps what he saw to himself. The shuttle moves underwater like a submarine. 4 months later, a girl named Yulia is jogging with her dog. When they reach her apartment building, her dog runs away and doesn't come back. She asks the men with her to help find him. Later, in her robotics class, a friend asks Yulia about some secret lab information. She jokes that if she told him, her guards would shoot him on the spot. After class, her friend tries to tell her he likes her, but Yulia stops him, saying they're better off as friends. Yulia's guards escort her to her dad's car. Her father, General Lebedev, teases her friend, calling him Google. Her friend brags about working at a tech company, but when he arrives, it's clear he's just an intern. As Yulia and her father drive, he jokes about sneaking her out of the country to keep her safe. Yulia tells him not to get in trouble. They arrive at a government lab where a robot is smashing through a door and a car. Yulia's dad talks to a scientist who explains the robot is controlled by a human using alien technology. The general learns that Yulia is the key to understanding this tech. In another part of the lab, Yulia is in an experiment. A scientist questions her about her encounter with an alien spaceship. He asks about her friend who died in the encounter and about an alien she helped. Yulia becomes upset when the scientist mentions her boyfriend, Artyom. Suddenly, Artyom is brought into the lab. He apologizes to Yulia for hurting her, which makes her furious. The scientist encourages him to keep talking, but this causes a huge power surge. General Lebedev rushes in, rescues Yulia, and takes her out of the lab. Later, Yulia begs her dad to let her have some time alone without guards. He agrees but secretly assigns a soldier named Ivan to watch her. That night, Yulia goes to a bar and notices Ivan following her. She buys him a drink to let him know she's aware of him. A man named Hakan then appears and tells Yulia she needs to come with him. Yulia refuses, and Hakan and Ivan start fighting. Yulia knocks Ivan out and leaves with Hakan. Hakan calls an alien ship named Sol, which locates a nearby car for them. It tracks where they are and finds them a ride, leading them to a car with 2 passengers. It takes over the digitalized car and starts driving it. Ivan catches up to them. The car manages to push Ivan away and drives off, being careful not to hurt people on the road. Ivan catches up to them again with a motorcycle and calls General Lebedev to inform him of the situation. The general tells him to follow them, but starts evacuating the laboratory of the Ministry of Defense, under the explanation that the aliens have come back to Earth. Back in the car, Hakan tells Yulia that she's in danger because they went too far with the experiments, so they have to fly away immediately. The car is speeding and almost hits a pedestrian, but instantly stops in front of him, telling the other passengers to get out. Hakan and Yulia continue riding in the car. Ivan pursues after them and shoots one of the wheels, causing an accident. Sol rescues Hakan and Yulia, guiding them to a safe spot in the woods. Yulia hesitates but goes inside and is surprised to see her dog there. She turns to Hakan and says, "I thought you were dead." It turns out Hakan is the alien Yulia saved. Yulia meets Hakan again, the alien she had helped before. He tells her that things went wrong during their last encounter. They talk about how he has been living on Earth, and he says he has adapted to life here. Suddenly, someone knocks on the door. It's Yulia's friend, nicknamed Google. Yulia is upset, even though Google had tried to warn her earlier. Hakan explains that he was supposed to leave Earth after their first meeting, but he stayed on the alien ship, Sol, breaking the rules. Yulia and Hakan share a kiss, and their connection deepens. Sol, the alien ship, seems to react, transforming into a new form called RA. The next morning, Yulia calls her father, General Lebedev, and tells him she's with Hakan. She says she has to leave Earth because she doesn't belong here anymore. She begs him not to tell anyone, but the general orders his men to track her location. Back in the house, Yulia and Hakan are having breakfast when a tactical team surrounds the house, ready to attack. General Lebedev orders the soldiers not to shoot, but RA interferes with the communication, changing the order to shoot to kill. The soldiers storm the house, and Hakan fights them off. He and Yulia manage to escape to his spaceship, which is waiting by the river. As they try to board, Yulia is shot by the soldiers. Hakan takes off in the ship, but a missile is launched at them. He destroys the missile, but the ship is damaged and crashes into the river. Hakan tries to fix the ship, but RA tells him that Yulia must be eliminated for repairs to continue. Hakan refuses, so RA declares him a target too. Meanwhile, General Lebedev and Ivan try to track the ship but are misled by Ra's interference. Military helicopters pursue the ship and fire at it, causing more damage. At the same time, Artyom, Yulia's ex-boyfriend, escapes from the lab using a robot suit. He gets to a bridge on the river and hears that there is a unit after the ship, ready to shoot them down. The boat glides through the water but gets shot by 2 helicopters. It flies out of the water and falls through the air, with water following it. Eventually, it crashes on the ground. The helicopters are in position, getting the kill order from RA when Artyom in the robot suit jumps at one of them and rips it to shreds. On the ground, General Lebedev arrives at the crash site but finds that Yulia and Hakan have already escaped. Hakan carries Yulia to safety, and they steal a car to get her help. Hakan explains that Sol, now RA, has immense power and is controlling human technology. He reveals that Ra's goal is to turn everyone against Yulia. Back at the Ministry of Defense, General Lebedev storms a meeting, demanding to know who ordered the attacks on the ship. The vice premier tells him that he is out of line and gets ordered to sit down. Then he asks the space defense to explain their actions. They say the orders came from the general. A recording is played where the general's voice can be heard giving the order. The vice premier orders the news to be played in the meeting, where the devastation in Moscow from the chase is apparent. The media is blaming Yulia for what happened and playing a deepfake video of her, making her sound like a terrorist that's on the side of the aliens, threatening the city. They reveal that not only the video, but the entire news program is fake, being broadcast from someplace else and not a TV station. The general tells them that the aliens are the ones doing it. He asks for retaliation, to which the vice premier says he needs evidence so he can confirm such action. General Lebedev asks for special protocols to be put in place in the meantime, saying that only analog technology should be used for all of their communication. The vice premier agrees and preparations begin for the switch. Meanwhile, Hakan, Yulia, and Artyom stop at a store to get water for Yulia. Inside, Hakan notices everyone's phones ringing with the same message: Yulia is a terrorist, and people need to capture her. Outside, a woman recognizes Yulia and alerts the police. The group escapes as police cars chase them. RA spreads fake news everywhere, making Yulia seem like a dangerous enemy. Even Ivan receives a message blaming Yulia for an attack that supposedly injured his son. Now, the whole world is after her. Google receives a visit from a police officer asking about Yulia, but his grandmother sends the officer away. Afterward, she confronts Google, knowing he's hiding someone, and he reluctantly reveals that Yulia and Hakan are in the closet. Meanwhile, Artyom and Hakan submerge Yulia in water to heal her. Hakan warns Artyom that Yulia is no longer fully human. He explains that her pain is transforming her, making her incredibly powerful, and potentially dangerous. RA has determined that her death is necessary to protect humanity. Later, Google and Artyom trick Hakan into getting drunk and decide to take him to the Ministry of Defense. When they arrive, they're confronted by General Lebedev, who demands Hakan reveal Ra's location. The general pressures Hakan, forcing him to choose between Yulia and his people. Ivan, meanwhile, is struggling with his own fears. Unable to reach his wife, he sees the news portraying Yulia as a terrorist and grows angrier. The general walks in telling his men to prepare an observatory and the satellite with the coordinates he got from Hakan. The general tells Ivan to get Yulia but brings her to him directly, without informing anyone else. The observatory locates RA, so the general contacts the vice premier about the next step. They decide to engage with it violently but need to destroy a satellite so that it doesn't catch up to what they're doing and create different problems. The military sends Google to Rostelecom to take down their satellite. Once the satellite is down, they will only have a few seconds before it reboots. They will destroy RA with a super-secret weapon that the vice premier pretends they don't even have, even though they do. The general convinces him that they have no other choice. Meanwhile, Yulia wakes up in the tub. Her wounds are gone. She gets ready to leave Google's grandmother's apartment when Ivan shows up at the door. He's driving her someplace, but she doesn't know that he thinks she's to blame for the attacks. He confronts her with the information, threatening her that if his son dies, so will she. The general gives the order to launch the special missile and destroy the satellite as well. They wait for the missile to destroy RA and rejoice when it's done. But, the general isn't convinced. He wants a full report and a visual confirmation to make sure the alien spaceship is destroyed. In the meantime, people gather on the streets and demand Yulia's prosecution. Ivan is driving her through the crowd. He still doesn't believe her, but he eventually takes her to the ministry to her father and the others. Ivan is disappointed with the general and quits the spot. Hakan uses a phone to communicate with RA. It tells him that it is ready for retribution since it doesn't believe humans are worthy of anything. RA tells Hakan that he can fly back, but he declines, still believing in mankind. The powerful spaceship starts a process of destruction on the planet seen from everywhere, including the tower of the Ministry of Defense. RA is angry at the humans for trying to use their technology to create weapons like Yulia. It creates a massive water dome around the area of Moscow where she is and starts flooding the inside of the walls. The military tries everything, but they can't destroy the dome. They start evacuating people, only to tell them that their only hope is to go as high up as they can and remain on the roofs of the buildings. The general tells Hakan to grab Yulia and get her to the chopper on the roof. So, he gets her and Artyom there and inside the helicopter, but remains in the dome. Hakan comes back to the general and asks for his shuttle, telling him that he can try and destroy RA if he can hit it with the shuttle. The general, realizing it's a one-way ticket, wants to go instead, but that's not possible since only Hakan can operate it manually. The general evacuates his men but remains behind to help Hakan navigate toward RA. The helicopter with Yulia and Artyom loses altitude and has to land, but it starts falling and the two of them jump out in the water. They are pulled on one of the roofs with the other people in the disaster area. The water keeps getting higher and Yulia can't accept that all the people can get hurt because of her, so she surrenders. She asks Artyom to kill her, and the others around them hear her. Meanwhile, the general manages to get Hakan as close to RA as he possibly can, until the water comes inside the building and floods it. Back on the roof, Yulia is begging to die, wanting to end all the suffering she's caused. Ivan is there and he sees her, going after her with a gun. Artyom tries to protect her but gets shot instead. The water starts closing in on them, but Ivan has lost his nerve. The water overtakes them. Hakan is getting closer and closer to RA, eventually speeding the ship towards it. Under the water, Yulia's bracelet activates and sends streams of water toward RA, as Hakan gets closer to it too. Yulia pulls RA out of the water and military helicopters start shooting at it as they see it. Yulia keeps pushing the ship out and the military drops a missile on it, destroying it. Suddenly the water starts receding and people start coming up for air. The general is still alive as well. Hakan's ship gets pushed back into the remaining water, as RA is dying. He appears on the roof next to Yulia. The alien threat has been destroyed and the day saved yet again. In the final moments, the general attends a fake funeral for his daughter. Later, a helicopter flies over Kamchatka. One person leaves the plane and walks off with the dog. It's the general tracking a specific location and when he gets there, he finds Yulia and Hakan. They embrace and wonder where to go next. Yulia touches the water and a spaceship appears from below. Thank you for watching. Be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications for more videos like this.